I've explored some of the wildest places on Earth, but my favourite is still Britain. In this series, I'm going to travel from dawn till dusk, carving 6 individual trails through spectacular, diverse landscapes in order to explore each unique habitat and the incredible wildlife that exists there. I'll journey along rivers, navigate my way through forests and across mountains in search of some of our greatest national treasures. This week, I'm on Dartmoor. I love this rugged landscape. It's possibly my favourite national park. In this part of Devon, there is a unique blend of natural history and ancient history. From the spectacular granite tors that top off so many of Dartmoor's hills, to the amazing Bronze Age architecture scattered across the countryside. Thousands of years of farming have created a distinctive moorland environment, while the rich valley woodlands are home to many rare and endangered species. I'm looking forward to following in the footsteps of our ancestors as I make my way through this stunning English landscape. My journey starts on the rugged peaks at the north of Dartmoor. This is High Will Hayes, the highest point in the national park, 621 metres above sea level. Today, the view is spectacular. I love coming here. There's a tremendous sense of expansiveness. There's always a wind, and it's challenging. I really like that. This is where I first learnt to navigate, roaming from tor to tor across the moors with a map and compass. And this tough terrain is still used today as a training ground for our armed forces. This section of the national park is a firing range, closed off to the public when training exercises are underway. But today, we have special permission to come and film in this area. The military have been here for about 200 years, and there are some fascinating artifacts that date back to some of the previous conflicts, like this railway here. This was part of a range used in the Second World War. If I follow this rail, it leads to this shed here built of local stone. Now, normally this is locked, but on this special occasion, I have permission to go inside and take a look. Now look at that. This is Captain. This is a range engine that during the Second World War used to run down these rails, towing behind it a trailer on which was a target of a tank that troops could shoot at using a variety of different weapons. Today, the ranges are still active, and if there are warning signs saying don't go into this area or red flags up, pay close attention to it, because you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. While British soldiers were going through their manoeuvres on the high moors 200 years ago, thousands of their French enemies were under lock and key just a few miles away. Dartmoor Prison was built in the early 1800s to house prisoners of war during the Napoleonic Wars. It is still in use for low-security inmates today. Neil Cole's farm sits in the shadow of the prison. His family have worked the land here for generations. Neil is taking me to see his horses out grazing on the common to the south of the prison.
We're on the way out to Whiteworks, where I got a bunch of ponies. It's not always guaranteed, but generally this is where they live and stay because they've been born and bred there. So we should be able to find them.
The ponies, of course, they're iconic, aren't they? I mean, everyone thinks of Dartmoor and the ponies.
Yeah, well, they're not just iconic. They are part of the moors. The ponies have teeth top and bottom on their jaw, on their front. So they nibble, you know, the rushes, the gorse, and the cattle and sheep just won't graze that. The moors look the way they do because there's Dartmoor ponies. I think they're just down there.
we going to do? We're going to walk over or?
Walk over, I would
Yeah,
say.
sounds good.
They see people,
Yeah.
they'll try and disappear.
And there's lots of dead ground.
Yeah, and they know the land a lot better than what we do.
Exactly.
There is much debate about what a Dartmoor pony really is. A classic pedigree animal must be of a particular colour, size and shape. But most of the horses that live out on the moors are not pedigree ponies.
Don't get too close.
For many of the farmers who keep horses on the common, the important thing is to have an animal that can survive year-round in this harsh environment.
I mean, these ponies have been here all winter with no hay, no supplement feed.
They look well.
And they're still looking pretty well.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's not much shelter, so that's why they've got to have a really thick, rugged coat to keep the rain and the cold weather out.
By golly, they're hardy animals.
Yeah, hopefully, if we just
Yeah.
walk up round here,
Yeah,
we should
yeah.
be able to
Nice
try
and-
and see
I
a
see.
pretty little foal.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's lovely. That's really lovely, isn't it?
If we just walk down around,
Just nice and gentle. How
Who is
old
he?
is this foal?
I would have said he's 12 hours old max. You can see his coat's still a little bit wrinkly, where
Yeah.
he's just dried out and it's just still where the afterbirth was on him.
Not yet a day old.
No.
He's still unsteady on his feet, look.
Yeah.
Back in the 1930s, there were up to 25,000 ponies on Dartmoor. Now there are only about 1,000 left. The price of livestock has dropped so much that these horses have little more than sentimental value.
I mean, people say, why do you keep them? But still gives us that little buzz
Oh, it's
seeing the
beautiful.
foals.
It's really lovely.
You know, it's something that I just hope to God that my children and grandchildren will continue. It's certainly something that should be preserved. Definitely.
Now I'm moving on from the grazed moors and granite tors of Dartmoor's uplands to drop down to a small oak woodland on the banks of the West Dart.
I always remember the first time I came to Dartmoor, I was really impressed by all this granite. It feels invulnerable, but actually it's not. The more you come to know them more, the more you realise it's in a constant state of flux. In fact, all of the tors on the moor are being broken down by the weather itself into much smaller pieces, which then sometimes roll downhill like this, and you end up with what the locals call clitter. And you can see what an amazing landscape this is. It's so broken, it's almost impossible to stand up in. And that makes it difficult for the animals too. And as a consequence of that, the trees that grow here have had some protection. And we've ended up with this fairy grotto-like wood.
This is Wistman's Wood, one of the highest oaklands in Britain and an important shelter for lichen and moss.
I really like places like this. The moss is like the perfect material for some things to grow in. This is wood sorrel. It's nothing particularly special, it's very common. It has a leaf that looks like clover, and that tastes of apple peel. It's really nice. That was the first wild plant that I ever tasted. From the day I tasted that, I've been hooked on things that you can eat. But of course you have to know what you're doing. You can't just go out and eat anything, because there are poisonous things that grow here too. But there are other things we found here, things that I wonder whether the ancient peoples of Dartmoor made use of. This one here is called, there's a Latin name usnea, because it contains an acid called usnic acid, which is really good for treating fungal infections and cuts. And up here we've got polypody, this fern. The roots of this, boiled up in milk, have been used to treat sore throats. But I'm going to leave it because a place like this is very special. If you come here, just look. Don't even leave too many footprints.
Mossy woodlands are also rich habitats for animal life. So as night falls, I'm heading downstream to another riverside forest in search of a creature which has survived in this area since the Ice Age, the blue ground beetle.
Okay, John, I've got my map here.
John Walters is going to help me track down this rare insect.
This beetle loves really moist, humid, damp woodlands, which is sitting in the river valley here. They are nice and damp, and it's a lovely damp evening as well.
Well, let's go and have a look.
Almost the entire British population of the blue ground beetle are found in oak forests on Dartmoor.
They hide away during the daytime, often at the base of the tree amongst bits of moss and in the soil.
Yep.
And then they emerge at dusk and start to climb up the trees.
Is that because they're pursuing their prey?
That's right. They particularly like tree slugs, which feed on the sort of lichens and mosses which grow on the trees.
Yeah. So we're looking for a beetle that can actually track. Big slug here, John.
Oh yeah, that's a big whopping one, isn't it? This is an Aryan slug. One of the identification features of this particular one, and I don't know who found this out, but if you stroke the slug from its head end to the tail, it will waggle its body from side to side. You can see it doing it now, yeah. There it goes.
That's amazing. Has that got some disco beat going on?
That's right. This is a slug which spends most of its time on the ground, but the ones we're looking for, that the beetle particularly likes, are the ones which climb up into the trees. So they're different species, but we should be able to find some of those. Check all the trees as we go by.
Oh, there's a slug.
This is a big slug here, right? This is the ash black slug, which is full grown. It's the world's biggest slug. It can grow up to about a foot long, about 30 centimetres long.
I've
fully
never seen it.
stretched
Have you
out.
seen that?
See, one's about 20 centimetres long.
Wow.
But the beetle doesn't seem sort of put off. It just grabs hold of the slug, tries to get away, but once the beetle's got it, it's doomed.
It looks like this slug has got lucky tonight. No beetles have picked up its scent. But we are obviously on the right track.
Right?
Yeah.
I've got one here. This is the blue ground beetle. It's an absolutely stunning creature.
Wow, look at that. That's huge. Look at that. That's amazing.
I can see it's trying to bite me there. So they have a very narrow front end, but very long jaws.
Aren't they just?
And really are quite impressive.
There we go. Look at that.
I mean, this has always been a rare beetle. It was first found in Britain in 1811, and then it wasn't seen for many years, and people thought it was extinct. And there was, in fact, a reward of £5, which was a small fortune in those days, put up for anyone who could rediscover this beetle in Britain. And eventually, a lady found one, but she only actually got £3 and a few shillings because it was slightly damaged. Which I thought she was a bit hard done by, I thought, yeah.
It's been fascinating to see the rich wildlife of Dartmoor's ancient oak woodlands. But I can't wait to get back out onto the hills tomorrow to find out how humans have fared in this area over the centuries. I'm on Dartmoor, the largest and wildest area of open country in the south of England. It's a place I've returned to many times since first learning to navigate across this landscape as a young man.
Coming to Dartmoor is always exciting because my two favourite things are found here. Natural history and ancient history. In fact, you can literally trip across the remains of people's lives from thousands of years ago.
Dartmoor has the largest concentration of Bronze Age remains in the UK. The most famous is probably Grimm's Pound, one of nearly 500 enclosed settlements found in the national park.
This pile of rocks isn't a natural feature. This is actually a wall. It's a man-made structure. And up here is an entranceway. Take a look at this. Now, this wall was quite a construction. It's estimated this was 1.7 metres high, and those are big, heavy granite boulders. This was a lot of work, and it was put up almost certainly to look after cattle in this enclosure. Today, the weather's pretty wet, but back when this was constructed, it was a different climate. Then it was warmer and drier, and these hills would have been really good grazing land for cattle. Hence these communities. What's amazing is that inside this incredible enclosure, you can still find the homes of the people who lived here. This is a hut circle. And you can see, this was once a home.
There are 24 hut circles in this 3,500-year-old site, and about half of these buildings had hearths, which suggests that people lived in them.
Over the top, there would have been a conical thatched roof. I can almost smell it, I can smell the smoke. Eventually, the climate changed. Things became colder and wetter. And where there'd once been good grazing, now peat grew. The people were forced to move away. Well, at least that's what we think happened. What we do know is that they left this incredible, mysterious site for future generations to ponder over and to enjoy. That's the magic of Dartmoor. There's so much history here. You can let your imagination run riot.
For the next stage of my journey, I'm heading east from Grimspound to a small forest on the edge of the national park. Yarner Wood was England's first national nature reserve, and it's home to one of the longest-running nest box schemes in the country. Boxes were first put up in 1955. Malcolm Burgess monitors bird numbers at the site. He puts rings onto the chicks that hatch in the boxes in the woods, like these young tawny owls. This enables him to identify individual birds without interfering with them after this one initial contact.
Good morning, Malcolm. How are you?
Morning, Ray.
Nice to see you.
Okay, yeah.
Malcolm is currently investigating wood warbler activity in the reserve.
Just heard one up there. Getting closer.
We're close, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's like treasure hunting. It's a lovely call, isn't it?
It is.
Just brrr,
It's a real sign of spring for me.
This once common forest bird is just starting to arrive from Africa, and, like many long-distance migrants, it is in severe decline.
There we go. Just
Here we
seeing
go.
it move there, yeah.
Yep. Just see how good the camouflage is, because the green on the back of the wood warbler is exactly the colour of the moss you get on trees.
Yeah.
The UK population of this beautiful songbird has dropped by more than 2/3 since the 1990s.
I love the way they sing and they throw their heads back and really send that sound out. It's fantastic to watch. Their chests full of the joys of spring.
More research is needed to find out why the wood warbler is under threat, so Malcolm tracks the progress of every new arrival to Yarner Wood.
This is an unringed wood warbler which we'd like to catch so we can follow it during the breeding season.
So you've come out specifically to catch this wood warbler?
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Unlike the owl chicks, this wood warbler first appeared in the forest as an adult, so Malcolm has to catch it in order to ring it. He'll put up a net and then lure his target with a recording of another wood warbler singing.
Very sneaky. So here we go. So the sound's running.
That's right.
I like these moments, these quiet moments,
Yeah.
when you're waiting for something to happen. They're the best times. He's getting closer.
That's where we want it. Want it to fly left now. And we have to hope that he comes low enough.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Bingo.
Oh, there he is. The bird isn't harmed by the netting,
It isn't.
and you have to be specially trained to do all of this.
Exactly, yeah.
There we go. But the work that you're doing is vitally important.
It is. We've been doing this for several years, so we can look at the return rate, the survival, how many come back from one year to the next, bearing in mind that this bird is going to fly to Western Africa after it's bred,
It's
and then
amazing.
hopefully come back to Dartmoor
He's a real traveller,
next
that
year.
one.
Yeah.
Now, can I see your passport, please? Beautiful.
With loving care, Malcolm rings, measures, and weighs his catch.
8.2 grams this one weighs.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
A jumbo jet may be impressive, but you try making a machine at 8.2 grams that could fly to Africa. You going to release him?
Yep.
Go back and find his feet. Oh, hey.
Yes.
You know, when you see a creature so close up, you can't but wonder at the miracle of nature. Well, this is where my journey ends, and where better than one of the windy granite tors of Dartmoor. I have a special connection with this national park. This is where I really started to learn to navigate. And on bigger journeys in wilder places, I often think back to those days roaming across the moors from tor to tor. But it's been great to come with a different intention and to see the wildlife here. That giant beetle, the blue ground beetle, what an incredible thing that is. The archaeology too, that will stay in my memory for a long while. But also the other things like the iconic ponies and learning about their important role here in this fragile ecosystem.
Next time, I will be canoeing on the mighty River Thames through the Oxfordshire countryside.
Feel nature's energy here. It's like plugging into a great big battery.
And I have privileged access to a secret forest to camp overnight. This week, I'm in Wales's largest and highest national park, Snowdonia. The great peaks of this mountainous region once matched those of the Himalayas, before millions of years of wind, rain and ice wore them down to the more accessible human scale we see today. I will be discovering how in this rugged, challenging landscape there are forms of wildlife which survive against all the odds and can only be found in this very special part of Britain. I will be travelling through Wales's most spectacular upland terrain as I make my way to mighty Mount Snowdon. But I'm starting my journey in the south of Snowdonia, out on the untamed moorland of the Canoeing Mountains.
This is really great country. This is one of the wilder parts of the national park. It's a place where you have to be able to take care of yourself.
I'm joining wildlife warden Paul Williams in search of an animal that has flourished in this uncompromising terrain. An animal many people would be surprised to find at large in the British countryside. The feral goat. Goats have roamed these hillsides for more than 10,000 years. Nowadays, about 400 are scattered across the Canoeing.
That one at the front, fantastic horns, amazing.
Yes.
Are these mostly males?
It looks to me like they are all males, yes. Yeah. You can see the horns sweep back and outward a little bit, whereas the horns of a nanny are straighter.
They're very impressive, aren't they?
Oh, the big billies can be spectacular animals, there's no doubt about that.
So, how did the goats come to be here?
They were domesticated animals. They were farmed for their meat, for their milk, for their hides. And when they became a less popular domestic animal, probably the middle of the 18th century, they were either released or just left to get on with it on their own. And now they live a life as if they were wild.
I like the way they move when they bound up the rocks. I think it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But they suit this landscape so well.
These incomers have adapted to Snowdonia so successfully that their numbers have to be carefully managed. But I think, after all these years, they have earned their place in this landscape. It's now time for me to leave behind the high moors and follow the river Gamlan down into the oak woodlands of Coed Ganllwyd.
One of the things I really love about Wales are the rivers that flow off of the mountains down into the forest, like here. The sound is full of life. And this moist, damp, humid environment is the perfect breeding place for mosses.
Sam Bosanquet has studied the stunning plant life in this wood. He introduces me to his prize specimen.
Well, the speciality of this woodland, because it has 95% of the British population of this species, is this thing here, which is called prostrate signal moss. Not the most spectacular of mosses.
But it does feel like velvet, it's lovely.
It does, and it's got lots of little tiny spore capsules just starting. So it should be able to spread all over the place. And yet, bizarrely, this ravine is the only place where this moss can thrive in Britain.
In fact, this moss is more at home thousands of miles south of here in the Canary Islands. So why is it doing so well in this river valley in North Wales?
The key thing here is the water, and there's a whole series of cascades down the river. Each one of those churns up and kicks up a great plume of mist. And you can actually feel it on us here to a certain extent.
I can definitely feel it. It's moist here. And I can see it's going, what, 20 feet or more into the air?
Yes, looking almost like smoke drifting up there. And so all the rocks here are kept permanently humid, warmer and frost-free in the winter.
So it's like a giant greenhouse.
It is.
And if you go into a tropical house, that's exactly what you get, these mists being created.
And of course the tree canopy is helping to keep that mist in as well, as are the rock walls on either side of the river. So that precise mix of humidity, warmth, all that sort of thing just comes together right here.
My next stop is also in the Welsh Woodlands, and a colony of honeybees doing well despite the catastrophic worldwide drop in bee numbers. Clive Hudson has kept hives for more than 30 years, but recently he has become fascinated by the activities of honeybees living in the wild.
So that's the bee's nest there in that hole.
It is, that's right.
I think I can see the comb, can't I? Goodness me, look at that. I can't believe that's so exposed.
It is unusual for a bee tree, and that the comb is virtually open to the air.
And in this hive, how many bees would you estimate?
40, should we go for about 40,000?
40,000.
About
That's
40,000.
amazing.
It's
Amazing.
still building, maybe going up to 40, 50,000.
Should we go and have a close look?
Yeah, okay.
Wow. That's
Then-
amazing.
Yeah,
You can feel the warmth coming out from inside, can't you?
yeah.
I'm really surprised that they aren't better protected. Surely they're a risk from woodpeckers.
Well, a little piece of the comb that's broken off recently, whether it came off with the wind or whether it's been attacked by a bird, I'm not sure.
Fascinating. And you can see, all the pollen sacs heavily laden, aren't they?
It's a light greeny yellow, which is the protein to feed the larvae, and these workers actually packing the food in there.
They're such hard workers.
The honeybee is our most important pollinator, so it's a major concern that the UK population has almost halved since the invasion of the varroa mite 2 decades ago. But this colony and many others in North Wales now appear to be doing well without any chemical protection against this deadly parasite.
A lot of beekeepers are no longer treating chemically for the varroa mite, and it may be hard to believe, but the people who are not treating are having fewer losses.
That's really
So
interesting.
somehow or other we're hopeful the bees are coping, and I think there's a very good chance they're going to be all right.
It's fantastic, isn't it, the way nature works?
The valley woodlands of Snowdonia are rich with rare and important wildlife, but most visitors are drawn to the jagged, wind-battered peaks to the north. And that's where I'm heading next.
This is Cwm Idwal. A lot of people come here to walk. It's very beautiful. In fact, one of my great heroes came here too, Charles Darwin. Not a lot of people realise that Darwin was actually a very gifted geologist, and he's credited with being the first person to realise that this lake was formed by glacial action. And these boulders here that were left by a retreating glacier are named after him. These are Darwin's rocks.
While this landscape is the product of immense geological forces, farming has also played a big part in the evolution of Snowdonia's countryside. Livestock graze the hillsides, clearing away trees and other vegetation. So how does the wildlife fare in the habitat that's left behind? I've organised an overnight survey of the animal activity on a mountain farm.
What interests me is this grass. You can see how tightly grazed that is. So how rich is this in mammal life? This evening we put out some small mammal traps to see if we can catch any alive. And in the morning we'll see whether we've had any luck.
I'm travelling through the dramatic landscapes and unique habitats of North Wales on a journey to Snowdon, the country's highest peak. I'm here to find out about the natural life of this beautiful part of the world, and that includes the heavily grazed agricultural land that covers much of the national park. Last night I asked Pete Kay of the Field Study Centre to lay a series of small mammal traps on a Snowdonia mountain farm. Our catch will reveal how wildlife is faring.
See what we...
First trap.
Well, the door's closed.
Oh, first one. Excellent.
So you insulated that because it was a cold night last night,
It was a
wasn't
cold night, yeah. So yeah, bit of bubble wrap. Shall we see?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Give it a tug.
Little wood mouse, isn't it? Fantastic. Look at that. And of course, this is a really dangerous time for a wood mouse to be out in the dark because everything's feeding young.
Yeah, and they've got to go out and feed their own young.
Yes.
They're just starting the first generation of the year. Apparently, they leave out, if it's a distinctive twig or a leaf, then they can mark their trails so they can navigate, lead them astray.
Give way sign.
Okay, this is what happens with wood mice.
Yep.
Going to find your way back home.
It's gone.
I'm afraid. One trap. Brilliant, first one. Good.
And there's another door closed here.
Let's see what we've got in this one.
Yeah. Here we go.
Another wood mouse.
It soon becomes obvious that this is exceptionally fertile territory for small mammals.
Is it another wood mouse?
It is.
It's a wall of wood mice.
In the space of just 20 metres, we find 4 wood mice. These rodents are very common. In Britain, they outnumber humans by 2 to 1, but it's still a surprise to find so many in such a small area.
We're going to try and pop it into this fish tank. You're going to have to be quick with that
I
lid.
know. Yeah.
So
I
fast.
am ready. There we go. Hello. You're safe. I like to talk to animals in moments like this. I know it sounds strange, but I find it seems to calm them. Rodents, in their tracks, they show 4 toes in the front feet and 5 in the rear.
Yeah.
You can see that really clearly here. It's beautiful. It's so easy to forget that ecosystems are built on the backs of tiny things. And of course, upon the rodents, there are predators preying, so that they're the ground swell of the ecosystem, although it's a pretty unenviable position to be a major prey species.
Yeah. There it goes. Oh, it's going straight back.
That was so interesting this morning. Putting those traps out has completely transformed my understanding of this landscape. I would never have thought there could be so many small mammals in ground that's so heavily grazed. Makes you think again, and that's the beauty of that kind of research.
My next destination is a steep-sided glacial valley near Mount Snowdon. I've been asked not to identify the exact spot because I'm on the lookout for a rare bird, the chough. There are only about 300 breeding pairs of this red-billed crow left in Britain, and there are just 15 at inland sites in Snowdonia, a drop of nearly half in the last 20 years. So the locations of their nests are fiercely protected. Adrienne Stafford monitors the Snowdonia population of this charismatic bird. It can be a challenge. Today, Adrienne is checking a nest perched above the shaft of an abandoned mine.
There's 3 chicks. In you go.
This is her only chance to weigh, measure, and ring these young birds.
Adrienne.
Here we are. Yes.
Oh, look at that.
We've got the 3 little
Behaving
chaps.
themselves. They're very young, aren't they?
We think they're about just over a fortnight. You don't want you to wriggle, little chap. So they're just passing their reptilian stage.
Yep.
And we just take 3 quick measurements, and we're going to put metal BTO ring with the unique number on it.
Yep.
But combined with that, there's 3 colour rings as well, so that you don't have to catch the bird or
read
find
them from
it
a
dead.
distance, yeah.
We can, if we see the colours, we'll know exactly who they are from a distance.
You hear the adult?
Pair in the background.
Yep.
They're keeping an eye on
They're
us.
keeping an eye, but they're not too disturbed. I'm surprised by that.
They quite often shout when you're approaching, but most of these birds breed for quite a number of years, so a lot of them will have seen this quite a few times before. Time to go home.
We leave the nest in peace so that the adult choughs can return and check their young.
So, Adrienne, that's the ringing done.
Yes.
But you've been doing this for a very long while, haven't you?
I must have got hooked on choughs pretty early along. I think by about 1995, 96, most of my time off would be out with my telescope trying to find out where our marked birds were and who was paired with whom and where they were, and you know, even divorces. And I know a lot of these choughs almost personally, you could say. So you feel personally bereft when you lose one of the ones that you've been watching for, you know, a dozen years or more.
I'm starting on the final leg of my journey towards Snowdonia's crowning glory. But as I travel through this landscape, it's impossible to ignore the many reminders of this region's industrial past. In Victorian times, 17,000 men produced up to 500,000 tonnes of slate a year from places like the Dinorwig quarry in the Llanberis Valley.
This site really is testimony to the hard work of the Welsh slate miners. Look at that. This was, when it was working, the 2nd largest slate mine in the world. I think today is a hideous eyesore. But from nature's perspective, it's just a changed habitat. And already she's creeping into the cracks and crevices and reclaiming this land. But there's a great view from up here. That is Mount Snowdon, the tallest mountain in Wales that gives its name to the national park. Growing on the slopes of that mountain is a very rare plant indeed. There are just a handful of them and they're very tiny. It's a plant I've never seen before and I'm very excited at the prospect of searching for it. The only problem is there's a forecast for bad weather coming in. So wish me luck.
The Snowdon lily has clung precariously to the cliff face of the mountain since the retreat of the ice 10,000 years ago. One of Britain's most endangered plants, it hides away in the Welsh mist, existing in only 5 locations in the UK, all within a few miles of Mount Snowdon. Harold Roberts is responsible for the conservation of this precious plant, but even he took 2 years to track down a specimen on this remote cliff face. Now, he has agreed to share his secret with me.
So what rock conditions are we looking for to find these plants?
For most of the Arctic alpine plants, we're looking for a rock that's slightly less acidic than the majority of the rock in the upland. The minute you see that type of rock, north or northeast facing, high up, you've got the right conditions for the Arctic alpine plants.
So how do you tell where the rock is less acidic? Are there any things to look for?
Well, just look at that face there. There's hardly any vegetation on it.
Yep.
Then just look across into that corner. We're starting to get some plants. Plants of interest. You can see rose root there.
Root, isn't it? Yes, I can see that. So it is really specific, tiny little pockets that you're looking for.
Very small pockets. And for some of the plants, including Snowdon lilies, we're looking for not even in pockets, but in crevices in the rock face.
Wow.
We make our way up a scree slope, hunting along the sheer rock face for traces of this tiny alpine treasure.
Let's see. I've seen some plants. Rose root, yes, but look what's immediately adjacent to it. That's Lloydius erotina. That's the plant that we're looking for.
Amazing.
But look at it, how delicate it is.
Because most people would just think it was a piece of grass.
Indeed, that's perhaps the saving grace for it. For many, many people who come here to look for it, they fail to see that. Yeah. Now, you've got to look very carefully now as we go on, because I hope there are a few flower buds and perhaps a flower ahead of us. So keep your eyes well peeled. There is one with a flower.
I love the excitement in your voice.
We're very, very fortunate.
As a man with passion.
That is Lloydius erotina. That's the gem that we're looking for.
The Snowdon lily.
Snowdon lily.
Beautiful. I mean, it's amazing because it looks like it's growing straight out of the rock. Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's very beautiful.
With my journey complete, I settle on a narrow mountain ledge for a well-earned brew as the mist slowly clears to reveal a stunning Snowdon view.
Well, I've really enjoyed coming to Snowdon. It's been a privilege to come up and see that little jewel that is to be found on the mountain here.
Thank you very much indeed, because you've described it to a T there by saying it's a jewel, and it's a jewel in the crown of Snowdonia.
Next time I'm heading to Dumfries and Galloway to find out about the stunning wildlife of the beautiful coastline.
Long may it continue.
And the contrasting habitats of the vast conifer forests.
See those young like that, what a privilege.
And the spectacular landscapes of Scotland's southern uplands.
Well, this is the life. Old Father Thames. Most people think of the Thames as that great river that sweeps through the city of London, but here I'm much further upstream in Oxfordshire. And at this part of the river, it's a quiet, tranquil, peaceful place with lots of wildlife to be explored.
The mighty Thames stretches 215 miles from source to sea. This river has shaped British history, even influencing the Romans' decision on where to build the City of London. Centuries of pollution have been reversed, and it's now an incredible wildlife corridor with over 400 unique habitats. I'll be using the river to explore the Oxfordshire countryside until I reach my final destination, the ancient Wytham Woods, a forest so rich in rare species that it is one of the most studied areas of woodland in the world. And I've been granted special permission to camp there so that I can discover its hidden treasures by day and by night.
Feel nature's energy here. It's like plugging into a great big battery. It's fantastic.
And for my first stop, I don't have to travel far. It's right here on the Thames itself.
Now that is what I'm looking for. Just on the far bank of the river, there's a hole. That is almost certainly the nest of a kingfisher.
These fast-flying birds are shy and seldom seen. Catching a glimpse is incredibly rare, so finding the nest is like hitting the jackpot, and it's not long before I'm rewarded with a flash of colour. Slow-flowing rivers, canals and lakes are the kingfisher's natural habitat. They feed almost exclusively on fish, catching up to 20 a day.
Such a beautiful bird, the kingfisher. You see it going along the rivers, this turquoise and bright orange flash. But actually, once they get in the undergrowth, it's one of the most discreet birds on the riverbank. But these birds are surprising me because they've picked a site that's really close to a car park. There's human disturbance here nearly all the time. That's quite astonishing.
Just as I'm preparing to leave, I spot a lovely sight. A water vole. These mammals are declining faster than any other and face extinction. So to see one here on the Thames is a truly special moment. As I continue my journey down the Thames, I'm surrounded by nature's treasure chest lining the river.
These horse chestnuts overarching the river here are magnificent. You can see there the baby conkers forming on the end there. It's quite an interesting tree. It's not a native of Britain, but it's got some interesting uses. And the leaves of this tree, if you make them wet and tear them up and squeeze out the juice from them, give you soap, which you can use to wash your hands. It's very, very effective.
As the river guides me through the Oxfordshire countryside, I head to my next destination, a very special habitat located in the floodplain of the Thames, Chimney Meadows. This floodplain is a natural defence, allowing the swollen river to overflow and consequently spend much of the winter months underwater. Yet now in summer, it's a rich habitat for a wide variety of plants, insects and birds.
I really like hides. This isn't the best time of day really to be looking out over a wetland like this. It's all a bit quiet and still. It's like being in Africa on safari looking over a waterhole at the hottest part of the day, not much happening, but always worth a look. You never know what you're going to see. And right now, on the far side, there is a heron, and it's standing right on top of a post and enjoying the sunshine drying out, enjoying the tranquility and the peace and the calm. It feels safe. I like herons. They're a really wild bird.
Fully grown, these birds stand at around 3 feet tall, with a wingspan double their height. British herons don't migrate, so here, close to the River Thames, could be its home for many years.
It's almost like a Disney character expecting to burst into song any moment. It's like they're possessed of a secret. They always seem to be on a mission. I'm sure they know things that we could never guess.
As I walked through the meadows, only a stone's throw from the riverbank, I'm taken by surprise to see a roe deer out in the open. At this time of year, the deer are giving birth, so they are at their most vulnerable and cautious.
There's a roebuck on the far side of the field, but now, just coming out of cover here on the left, that's a roe doe. And you can see that she's no longer pregnant, so she's given birth, probably just the last few days.
As the buck keeps watch for any danger, the doe goes about regaining her strength, feeding on the rich flora these meadows offer. The kids will be nearby, hidden away in the undergrowth.
Unfortunately, there's some people walking past down there, and that's enough disturbance. She's very, very skittish. She knows that the best defence for her young during the day is to sit head to tail, and she knows that when she's around, alertness and just being aware of people and dangers, foxes, that's the best defence for her kids. That's a pity, but that's looking at wildlife. That's what happens.
Like a scene out of a Constable painting. Sometimes you can feel as though time has stood still.
And from the water I spot a wonderful sight, my favourite bird of prey, the hobby on a summer visit, soaring above.
Incredible bird. Predator with those swallow-shaped wings that give it the most amazing agility in flight. It'll take dragonflies on the wing and even eat them, and bite them in midair. It's awesome. A little aerial display over the river. That's made my day. Fantastic.
My river journey is taking me to a one-of-a-kind destination high up on the chalk hills. It's called Hart's Lock Reserve.
Now that hill ahead of me, that's going to be the end of my journey by canoe, which is always a shame. I want to go up there because at this time of year, there's an opportunity to see a very rare orchid. And orchids are fascinating.
Back in 2006, a very special discovery was made here. A hybrid of two endangered orchids, the lady orchid and the monkey orchid. It remains the only place in Britain where it has been recorded.
Chris,
Good to see
it's
you.
nice to see you. Nice to be on the chalk. It's lovely.
Yes.
Hart's Lock Reserve's warden Chris Raper is here to tell me about the origins of this unique flower.
What we've got straight ahead of us is the one lady orchid in the colony.
That's this one here.
That
yeah?
one there.
The lady orchid is smaller and darker in colour, with just one flowering this year. She is the mother of all 400 of these lighter purple orchids that pepper these chalk hills. The father of the offsprings, the monkey orchid, is more similar in colour, but has a more defined tail.
It's probably the only time in history the two plants have actually grown that close together, where a little bee would obviously visit one plant, take the pollen off that, and then visit the lady orchid in this case, transfer the pollen onto the stigma, then go about its business. But in doing that has then created the hybrid between the two species.
And they've got that wonderful fairy cowl over their head. I mean, they're fantastic.
Like variously described as a bonnet. You can see the concept of a lady in a crinoline skirt with a bonnet over her head.
They're amazing. Yeah. That's a fantastic display, aren't they? Beautiful.
Leaving the orchids behind, I press on to my final destination, just 1 mile from the banks of the Thames, where I will be setting up camp for the night in the magical Wytham Woods. I've travelled along the River Thames to reach the last stop on my journey, and it's one that really excites me, Wytham Woods, one of the most intensively researched areas of woodland in the world. It's been called a laboratory with leaves. This unique habitat contains more threatened species than anywhere in the UK. It is home to over 500 different plants and 800 kinds of butterflies and moths.
Well, they forecast rain, heavy showers, and I've just heard an ominous rumble of thunder. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is put up my tarp. I've got very special permission to camp here in the woods.
The woods have been owned by the University of Oxford since 1943 and have played a key role in training generations of British ecologists. So important is the work here that you need a permit just to visit. So I am very lucky indeed.
Just got that tarp up in time. It's always a good feeling if you get it up just in time. It rained quite heavily in the night, so the woods are very wet at the moment, so I'm just going to make some shavings to get the fire going. I went off and collected some fungi like this on an ash tree. These are called King Alfred's cakes because they look burned, look like a lump of charcoal growing on dead ash trees. And they are as good as charcoal for fire lighting. They have to be dry, you need a dry one. Take a spark and drop it in there. That'll start to glow. We put a couple of those together. One lights the other. They're glowing away nicely, and I'll put these shavings on top. Looking forward to our brew. Oh,
I want to keep my fire going so later I can cook my supper, but first I'm going to need more fuel from the woods. Luckily, woodsman Matt Williams is going to help me out. He makes charcoal from the waste wood in the forest, and today he's going to teach me how it's done, though on a rather smaller scale than he is used to.
The idea is we're going to put a dry charge in the middle, inside a barrel, upside down. We'll light a fire around it, and then as the temperature builds, then the charcoal will make inside that barrel.
Matt produces artisan charcoal for the catering industry. He uses trees such as sycamore, hazel and sweet chestnut. Each has a different smell when burning, and the charcoals create individual flavours.
That's what we're going to make the charcoal out of.
And what have you got in there?
Sycamore.
Sycamore, oh, very nice, yeah.
Well seasoned as well, so that we're not going to have too much trouble getting it going.
Yep.
And this little cage just means we can lift it back out again afterwards. That's the way.
Finally, the flue is sealed to restrict oxygen flow to the fire.
Right, here we go.
The whole process should take around 4 hours. While the wood burns, I want to find out more about the local deer. 3 of Britain's 6 deer species, fallow, muntjac and roe, live in Wytham Woods. Nick Ewart has been the deer manager here for 13 years. I'm tagging along as he does his rounds, hoping to catch a glimpse of these elegant creatures. Nick knows every inch of these woods, and it's not long before we spot a heavily pregnant roe deer.
Really surprised that she's allowed us to walk around behind her like that. Makes me think that she's very close to giving birth. No, I don't think she wants to run, does she?
No, she doesn't. She wants to keep as much energy as possible.
Yeah. And that coat, isn't it brilliant camouflage, just when she needs it most?
Yeah, especially amongst these sycamores.
You can see she's put all her energy into the young. She's quite skinny. She'll be glad when she's given birth, I think. She'll have a chance then to go off and feed up.
There are currently around 50 deer here. Numbers need to be controlled to keep the herd healthy and maintain the fragile ecosystem of the forest.
How do you feel when you watch the deer like this? You know, everybody thinks the deer managers just shoot deer.
No, it's not all about shooting. I mean, you'll see in a few weeks' time, you'll see her in the same place with her fawns, and you think, OK, let's see what these grow up to be. And that's good.
Oh, there she goes.
As the roe deer bolts deep into the forest, I leave Nick to finish his rounds and meet up with local moth expert Ross Crates, who last night set out some traps. I'm keen to learn more about the amazing range of moths that live here.
Under 60 butterflies in the country. How many moths?
The diversity of moths is absolutely crazy. There's probably over 600 species that you can regularly occur in the British Isles.
Amazing.
And I think over 2,000 have been recorded.
Look at that, it's beautiful.
Yes, peppered moths, they're fantastic, and they're kind of a model species for our understanding of evolution during the industrial periods.
So when there was soot in the environment, because we were burning lots of coal, these moths, they adapted to those conditions.
Exactly, yeah. So the mutation caused a certain proportion of the population to become dark. Because they blended into the sooty bark on the trees or the walls or whatever, they were much less obvious to predators. Their proportion of the population increased dramatically during the industrial period.
It's one of those wonderful examples where we can actually see Darwin's theory in operation.
Exactly.
Most species of moth live only for a week or 2, with the male living a few days longer than the female. They mainly feed on flower nectar, which is in abundance here in the summer months.
Look at that one. I mean, that really looks like a flake of bark.
It does, exactly, yeah. It's called coxcomb prominent. It's one of my, I must say, it's one of my favourite moths. They're really, really neat.
Beautiful. It's superb camouflage.
One of the other good things about moths is they're kind of the common names were developed by all these eccentric 19th century naturalists. So some of the names that they've given them are fantastic. Cetaceous Hebrew character or peach blossom. They're really imaginative, but it really helps to remember them.
It's been 4 hours since we started the charcoal, so I head back to camp to meet up with woodsman Matt.
Right.
So should we grab it out?
Yeah, let's okay, just pull it up now.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
How heavy does it feel?
No, it feels nice and light now.
Excellent.
By comparison. And what do? Turn it over?
Yep.
Oh, look at that. That looks good, doesn't it? There's the magic substance.
Oh, I'm pleased with that.
It's all right, very nice.
Should do well, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that'll be good.
As Matt heads home, I add some of his charcoal to my campfire, preparing for dinner.
Evening, Nick. How are you?
Right, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
And you?
I've invited deer manager Nick, who has brought something special to cook. Homemade Wytham wood venison sausages.
Oh, wonderful. But these didn't come out of the supermarket, did they?
No.
Look at that. God, they look great. There we go. That should do the trick, shouldn't it?
Got some cracking footage here.
Oh, I'd love to see, yeah.
Nick has trail cameras spread across the forest to capture the after-hours comings and goings of the deer he looks after.
Ah, look at that. Is he going to thrash? Is that a willow?
Yes.
They love to thrash the willow with their antlers, don't they, when they're in the beginning of the rut? And the sound that would go with that is that wonderful, that.
Yeah. You do a better impression than I do. That sounds awful.
And it's not just deer that roam these woods after dark. It's also home to one of the densest badger populations in the UK. Here a mother drags her reluctant cub out into the night woods, one of its first ventures above ground.
Oh yeah, looking quite nice. There's this monstrous sausage. I think you were a bit enthusiastic when you made that one.
I think so.
Just check it's cooked through, as always. Yeah, it looks good. Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, hot.
They're delicious.
They are good.
Yeah, they're very good. Nice way to cook them. It doesn't need any sauce. It's just perfect as it is. Lovely. Well, it's been a really lovely time to be in the woods, and particularly to camp out in oak woodland like this. Early May is a really exciting time in the countryside. There's so much going on, from the great tits with their young. In fact, as I speak to you, it's watching me now. And the other things I've seen, the kingfishers sitting on their eggs in their nest hole in the riverbank, and the wonderful hobby that flew down and displayed in front of me when I was canoeing on the Thames. But of course, perhaps the most important thing at this time of year is the roe deer, because right now is the time that they give birth. So to be able to go out and watch them discreetly without disturbing them and share in that excitement is very special.
Next time, I'm on a journey through wild moorland.
I like the way they move when they bound up the rocks. I think it was fantastic.
Unique forest habitats.
Well, that is a beautiful waterfall.
And stunning glacial valleys as I head for mighty Mount Snowdon, Wales's highest peak.